regardless if you're the nozzleman in real life or not, it's good to like switch positions so you understand how to support that person and vice versa. The other thing is if you haven't been exposed to some of the recent academies as far as like some of the techniques, these are the things that are being taught to the new people. So it might help you understand some of the task book items that the probationary firefighters are going through. So I'd say that's it. Make sure you sign in. And beyond that, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a demonstration, all of us together. So we'll walk over to the west side of the tower, and Captain Stolzoff is going to walk us through a hose advancement station.
And as we go through everything, you can move around the props to be able to see what Kevin and Collins are going to be demonstrating. To be a real quick demonstration before we break out to the different station, to the other stations. Total of 3 stations today. And everything we're going over, it's building on what our last IST of hose line advancement with the knee walk, the hip grip, clamp slide, all those options. And these are just additional options. So if you have other ways you'd like to try it or other ways that work for you, please take this time to do that way. All objective based. We're not saying you have to do it these ways. These are some best practices that we've been able to use and it seemed to work out well. But if you have different ways that work for you that you would like to practice, have at it. We're not stopping you. And everybody's body mechanics, injuries, that type of thing are different. So there may be some techniques that don't work great for you. And so we'll just have you adjust and just get through the evolution. That's best for you. We're just looking for some reps and practice so that when you get your residential fire later, you'll be even more prepared. There's 3 concepts that we're going to be talking about as we advance our lines in. And the first one is, where's our nozzle and how are they walking through the residence and approaching obstacles or pinch points. And that's going to be to the outside corner of whatever their pinch point is. So if I'm going to make a left and I'm the nozzle, I'm going to try to bump to my right as much as I can before I make that turn. So as I'm advancing, I'm not right here. And all these techniques are looking to make the advance smoother and get your hose caught up less. The second one is going to be our spacing between our nozzle and our heel. We want that to be about 8 to 10 feet is a general rule of thumb, but that can adjust as the evolution goes. And where you need to be to advance your hose off those pinch points. That may change throughout the evolution. But generally about 8 to 10 feet, and we're using that same concept when we move to the 2.5. All these things that we're practicing, same exact approach for the 2.5 and advancing that. As far as your heel, as you're advancing, same idea, but you have the hose in your hand and you'll be able to push that hose to the outside corner as you're making it around your obstacles, your pinch points. We're going to go through 3 different types of angles that you may see in a residence or commercial building. That's the 90, 180, and the T hallway. And then as we demonstrate, we'll show you different ways you can position yourself, like midway between the span between pinch points, or how we're going to preload our hose into our residence, and when you may or may not want to do that based off the evolution and the conditions that you have in front of you. These are all condition dependent techniques. We want you to walk the hose in as far as you can until the conditions tell you otherwise, and then you'll make that decision. Same thing with the 2.5. That's the easiest way to move our hose where we need it to go, is to walk. Now, if we're in conditions where we can't walk, it's too hot, the conditions aren't allowing us to do that, there's better visibility if we're low, then we want to have some techniques to be able to move our hose in, even with that type of environment. So we're going to be able to practice the different techniques from last IST a lot at Matt and Kevin's station, and if we need to, we'll practice it here as well. And that's going to be either the hit and move, where you're opening your line, you're flowing water, you're stopping and then moving forward into the structure, or the flow and move, where you're having a technique and the ability to open the line and flow water constantly as you move into a room, usually used for about short distances, like 5 to 10 feet. But we're going to kind of challenge you at this station, see maybe make that a little bit longer so you get more comfortable, build that confidence with that flow and move technique as well. Overall, we want to really try to enforce flowing water and before you have a problem, so that you're cooling your environment as you go. somebody had a great analogy. It's almost like wildland hose lay. You're gonna make sure that your line is cold as you advance your hose line in, so you don't have any issues behind you as you go. And that's even if you're not maybe feeling the heat and you're not getting pushed down to the ground yet, but you still want to control your environment and set it up for success if conditions do change. A window breaks, somebody opens a door, a room down the hallway flashes, you want to already be ahead of the curve. So what do we have? Kevin, yeah, sorry, I didn't see you guys. We'll go ahead and have them just go ahead and jump in and demonstrate the techniques they're going to go through, knock out the 180. You'll be able to see the techniques that they use. Nozzle bump to the outside of the turn, and the same thing with the heel. He's going to push the hose to the outside. Go ahead.
Ready to move? Ready.
And you guys can bump around to the side if you want to see.
Left turn, 10 feet. Left turn.
Good communication between the nozzle and the heel. Collins is pushing that hose to the outside. He's not preloading anything yet. Able to flow. Now Kevin's got to make another 90. So now Collins is able to position himself in between the two pinch points. He can watch both of them, push the hose off of one, and then if he needs to advance more hose, he's going to bump back to that mid pinch point and push the hose off those interior corners. Big concept is we're using our large muscle groups to move our hose. We're trying to stay away from the hand over hand. Now, we're not saying there won't ever be a time where that's going to be your best option or what you're most comfortable with. But if we can move the hose with just using our large muscle groups and walking it in, or even just being in that heel position and using our larger muscle groups to move it forward, we're going to conserve our energy and less of a chance of us dropping our hose, getting pulled into a pinch point, things like that. All right, we're going to advance it out, and we're going to use the same techniques. Now Kevin has a nozzle, he's pretty much a heel, so he's going to push the hose off that interior pinch point. Collins is going to get in the middle of the two pinch points, and they're going to work together to advance the hose out. This would be an evolution like you get knocked down in one unit of a multifamily. Now you need to advance your hose to the one adjacent to check for extension. This is not a tactical retreat where you have to defend yourself and flow water to get out of an environment where you're getting burned. This is just to move your hose. And we're going to use those same concepts, say if we deployed on the Alpha side, 360's done, and we find out, hey, it's a walkout basement on the Charlie, we need to change our hose, our access point. We can easily use this spacing and concepts to move our hose around that building quickly so we can get into the best point of access. Next, we're going to practice the T-hallway, and you're going to see a couple different options for loading the hose in. Initially, they're still going to be in the same spacing. You're going to advance in.
Ready to move. Ready.
And if you guys get on this side,
Right
Kev's going to make it right, so he's going to be on the left. Collins is going to push that hose to the outside corner, and then he's going to identify he has this T-hallway. So now he can preload. If the timing is right, Kevin's fighting fire, he can go mid-pinch point. Go mid-pinch point one more time, Collins. Hold. Mid-pinch point one more time. He's going to advance more hose down this T-hallway. Now this advancement, perfect, thank you. The advancement down the hallway is going to be easier because they preloaded the T as they go down. It's one option. It's dependent on the timing as well of how fast your nozzle is moving. There may be a point where your nozzle he keeps going. So you may have to have that good communication and tell your nozzle to hold up. I need to get you more hose. And instead of loading the T hallway, he's just going to go mid pinch point and continue to walk his hose around that 90 so your nozzle can continue. All right, go ahead and we'll bring it back out. Same concept, spacing, pushing it off the interior corners. So now we're going over the 2.5. Back, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, our 2.5 only had the automatic yellow nozzle, a lot of nozzle reaction. You had to have a hose strap, you had to put it in a cowboy. It was for surround and drown, exposure line, not something that we would take into a building as an attack line because of the nozzle that we had on it. It was too much work. Now what we have is our constant gallonage nozzle. It's completely different. A lot easier, less nozzle reaction. However, we're not saying it's not more labor intensive to move a 2.5 compared to 1.75 inch. We do need more people. So if you've made the decision, you're on an incident where you want to use this attack line, we are suggesting that you ask for an additional engine company to help with hose line management. Now that could be worded as, hey, I need another engine company to back up fire attack. What does that usually mean on residential though? A second line, and so that's where you want to make sure the communication is clear to the IC that we need a second engine to help us with advancing our 2.5-inch line out the side of the building, whatever it is, so that they're not pulling that second line, because it is common communication when we say backup that it is a secondary line. So we just want to make sure that however you want to word it, we don't have a specific way to say it, that we get those personnel on our 2.5. Same spacing, same idea as far as advancing it in. You'd have a total of 7 people. When you rotate to this station, we're going to advance about 150 into the building with 6, so 1 less person. And we'll be able to see how easily the line moves in and out of the structure. The other thing with the 2.5 is if you are pulling this line, it's probably a large building or a lot of fire involvement, so you want to take into consideration the burn time and your structural integrity of the building you're going into, ease of access and egress, all those types of things you may or may not take into account a lot of times on our residential fires. This would be a fire we don't get very often, and so if we are pulling this line, it's a great tool, but we want to have those things in the back of our head as things to consider, so that we're able to take care of the problem without any issues. Anything else? I'm trying to think. You'll be able to have a chance at this station to work with our 1.25-inch smoothbore tip, and then at Kevin and Matt's station, the constant gallonage nozzle. And you'll be able to compare and contrast the two. This is 75 more GPM, and as you use either of them, there's like 0 difference in nozzle reaction really, and ability to flow. We're gonna want, the easiest way to move our 2.5 is to walk it in. So we're gonna use our spacing, walk it in as far as we can. And then to flow, even if we could be standing, we wanna just throw our 2.5 down on the ground, get in that clamp position, and go ahead and flow water from that position, conserve our energy, then pick it up, move forward. Now we still can move this line in the lower positioning with the manpower we get from an additional engine company. And we'll be able to see this out as we practice at the stations. So right now, Kevin and Matt, they're just gonna demonstrate, and then we're gonna have a nozzle in the 2 heels. They're gonna demonstrate walking the 2.5-inch in. They're gonna make the corner. You guys can go around or look right here, make the corner. He's gonna get in that clamp position, take care of that nozzle reaction. Additionally, Collins and Carlton are be able to push that 2.5 into the wall behind Kevin, just as another technique to try to take some of that nozzle reaction away from your nozzleman, so it's easier from him, or easier for him to flow water. That could be a wall, a vehicle, any type of obstacle you can push the hose into to take that nozzle reaction away, conserve energy. All right, go ahead.
Ready to move? Ready. Move.
Walking the line in as far as possible. As you make that corner, same idea. You took it wide, heel, push it to the outside. They're completely away. The hose line's completely away from that pinch point. Kevin's able to get in that clamp position, flow water.
Ready to move. Ready.
They're at advance.
Move.
Using that clamp slide technique.
Good.
And now he's off the wall, but just using the clamp technique to flow the 2.5. And this is really similar to the way it would feel back in the day with the automatic if you had it in the cowboy and you're sitting on the line. It's easier to handle than the automatic was back in the day. Advancing the 2.5 back out of the structure, same concept, spacing, pushing it off of the interior pinch points. Now go ahead and bring it out.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Good. All right, one last thing. As we set up our 2.5 or 1.75, it's beneficial to have our couplings near the entry point. And this is what we would find a lot of times if you do a drop and go with our pre-connects. Say you chose to do a drop and go with our 2.5-inch pre-connect, or another option that's probably more common with the 2.5-inch pre-connect is to modified Minuteman it. And that's a lot of hose though on your shoulder, 200 feet. So another option, again, whatever works out for that situation. Modified Minuteman 100, grab and go the other 100, and then you have 100 on your shoulder that's just like the Chula load. And Kevin and Matt are gonna go over some techniques to deploy that flat load 100 feet on your shoulder where it easily pays out and you're not dumping hose at the entry point and then trying to figure out where you wanna spread it out before you call for water. So it's just be able to get ahead of the curve. Those are the demonstrations that we have, and so we'll break out into our groups. As the nozzleman, most likely you're gonna deploy, your hose line is gonna look like this. If we open our door and we have some space to get into our residence without conditions where we have to flow water, an option that works well is for us to have a nozzle and coupling.
Yes.
And advance in, right? So if you guys watch out, at this point, I'm able to easily, ready to go in? It doesn't catch your glove. So at that point, just the nozzleman himself has pretty much advanced 50 feet into the structure without any issue. One concern though, if you do advance a bite into the structure, the bite technique is to watch out for kinks. So you may have to bump your hose up on furniture, whatever it may be, but it's just one option. Even if you can't go this far, if you can just get your coupling inside that doorway, it's gonna make your life easier. Good. Cool. All right. So a clamp, you're just gonna have your back leg on that line. Then and your heel position right there, that triangle with his front arm down on the other side of the hose. The backhand underneath the hose. He's gonna be driving with that back leg. So my positioning, just gonna have my leg on top of my hose, leg up in the front. If I want to, and I'm in a situation where it would dictate that I could sound to keep myself safe, my leg is in a position where I can sound before I go forward. But again, that's conditions dependent. As I move, I'm gonna communicate with my heel. Ready to move?
Ready.
Move. I'm able to put my hand forward, have that triangle, and then I'm gonna use my body weight to slide the hose forward as I move. Then I'm immediately in a position where I can flow water and do it for a long time, conserving energy. One thing that we found, if we have our bail on our inside, if something happens and this hose goes out from beneath me, then this bail is automatically gonna get closed as opposed to if it was over here. Maybe a little bit more if it was right there, and then easy for me to shut down with that hand that's closest. Okay? So that's your clamp slide. Next would be your hip grip to knee walk. So this is where I want to flow water constantly around a corner as I coordinate with my heel. Now this is important for me to let my heel know that I'm going to go to this position. So what we're gonna use is ready to push.
Ready.
Okay, and then I would say push. And it would be less hose that my heel would be advancing towards me as we flow and move. Ready to push?
Ready.
Push. That was smooth. Thanks, Matt. So I know some people are comfortable with having their hand on the bail after they've opened the line. And if that's the way you would like to advance, that's completely fine. One thing you want to watch out for with this hose, these nozzles, is if you choose to do that, there's a higher chance your line's gonna kink. And even right now with this specific hose, after I opened it up, took my hand off the bail, my line was starting to want to kink a little bit. I kind of had to watch out for it. So I had my hand back so I'm able to control my pattern and then keep the line from kinking and have control over it. So depending on what your technique is and the way you like to flow the line, things to consider and watch out for.
Two things to practice is the heel, especially when you have a fast clamp slider, is the closer my back foot is to my knee, the further I can drive and keep up with a fast clamp slider. Because if you start right here, your throw is limited. If you start right here, you get to pick up some speed. And then secondly, practice the mirror image so that you can go either direction.
Cool. One thing about preloading your room, consider how much hose you're bringing in. Whoever the heel is, their job is to coordinate everything for that nozzle. And they're pretty much running the show. Company officers are gonna be bumping up ahead of them, searching a room, whatever it may be. So that heel is really there for that nozzle. So that we've talked to other people coming through the rotations from previous sessions, had experience we're getting too much hose so that the heel is, the people behind the nozzle is actually making his job harder because they're trying to advance too much hose. So that's where that heel is in communication with the nozzle and controlling everybody behind him and how much hose is being fed into the structure. And what we don't want to do is preload too much hose into that front room. It's going to make our job harder. We want to sequentially move our hose into the building. Now that goes to, well, how much hose do we need in the building? One of the ways that they talk about estimating that is you take the longest distance in the building, whether it's the length or the width, you times that by 1.5 and it gets you a general idea how much hose you need in there. Now you go upstairs, you're gonna have to add about 20, 25 feet. I think in the video it said 50 feet per stairway, but that's depending on your stairway, right? So if you're going up to another floor, just consider you're gonna need a little bit more hose. Now, are we gonna be doing that on an incident? Or no, we're not gonna do that, but we're gonna do it ahead of time. As we're driving around our districts, we're running medical aids in our district, we can talk about that. Hey, this one looks like 50, 30, 75. There's a lot of houses in the west side that 30 feet is gonna handle the whole place. Like once you start looking at it, it's a minimal amount of hose. What does that mean? It means that my nozzle can easily advance all the hose he needs in the structure right off the bat. So that means my heel is freed up to do something else. All things to consider depending on your call. Any questions? All right, let's go ahead and get after it. We want you to practice flow a lot of water as you're going through your reps. Once you do the hit and move and you've practiced the techniques, we want you to progress to a flow and move. Good, so this situation, you've opened the door, you already have maybe some rollover. You're gonna wanna control your environment as you go. Good. So hold on. So one option, you're starting to do hand over hand, right? It works. Another option is you stop, you go mid pinch point, and then you're using your body to move the hose forward, Phoenix, instead of your hands. Okay. Oh, yeah. But I mean, it still may come to a point where you need to tell your nozzle, hey, hold up, let me get more hose for you. But I mean, just techniques that we're trying to, because we're so used to going hand over hand that if we can take a moment and then adjust, it could save us some energy, makes it easier. If other people are feeding your hose, it just seems like you have more control. So. Okay.
Up third. Good.
Cool. Yeah, so say we have this hose, depending on conditions, we want to load, we can always, if it works out, load up high. And so then we're using gravity to push our hose in as well. It's another technique and option. Collins and Kevin, they'll go over, like, I don't even know what you call it. It's like a loop technique.
Kind of like coil it in.
Yeah, they coil it and they're able to roll it in for, what's that?
So they kind of feed out for them.
Yeah. They're the experts on that technique, but yeah, and it's able, one way to advance like maybe 5 to 10 feet of hose through a structure. All right, so as we move the hose out, now you're in mid pinch point, and then Jacques, you're gonna go ahead and push this hose off this interior pinch point as you advance. So go ahead and bring it out, just the two of you. Good, you're gonna walk it through. You're not gonna go hand over hand. Good. Go hold up, hold up. Now you're gonna push it off this. So if you're gonna take this corner, Rob, try to cheat as much as you can, yeah, and then almost kind of take it wide, you know, so you can keep going. So stop there, Brad. Stop there. Go mid pinch point on the other side, and then keep going. Now go. So now you're pushing off that one and push it off this one. See how you walk the hose instead of being stuck here going hand over hand, then it gets caught in that one, and then it gets caught. So if you just walk, go mid pinch point, pick it up, and then coordination, it's an option. Good. So now, Rob, as you go back, what you can do is you just take your nozzle, have your hose now ready to move, and then I'm able to push it off that interior corner. Hold it. And then walk it out, Brad. Yeah, so if instead of hand over handing it, just grab it and walk it out. Because now you're using all your body weight to pull that hose out, and it's gonna come with you. Somebody lost a thumb?
One way to think of it, as opposed to pulling hand over hand from the last pitch point, like we've done, instead, you're pushing to the pinch point ahead of you. It's it's a whole different idea. You're removing the friction off the pinch point ahead of you, as opposed to trying to pull it around the pinch point behind you. Because if there's a single heel and you have tension on the pinch point behind you, you go back to the mid-span point, push it around that one, sequentially move up and push it around the next one. So that's the kind of idea.
All right. So want to have them do the T instead of the other 90?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this one, it may take some sequential moves of you communicating with your nozzle to stop, you coming back mid pinch point, walking your hose, preload it. Okay, now I'm ready to go. Then you get back in your 8 to 10 feet spacing, or maybe even more, depending on your pinch points, to push it off that pinch point so that your nozzle can go.
So we're making the right turn.
Right turn, and then at that point, it will simulate like you're flowing water. That'll allow your heel to load the T, and then you're gonna once your T is loaded, your heel will communicate ready to go, ready to move. Okay, copy, and then ready to move, ready, and then you move forward. However you guys want to communicate, even if you need to talk, right? You may just see each other, and again, these are condition dependent, so you may not even see your nozzle at all. But and then as you get to that second 90, we're going to continue to advance, and you're going to have to come back and load again. Just trying to reinforce the sequential movement of, yep. And then as we bring the hose out, we're doing the same thing. Practice the same thing.
And of course, you add a second heel, and it's easy can of corn. But the point of this is one heel, 2 friction points, to then load sequentially. It's kind of stuff. once the problem occurs once he gets around the second pinch point. Around the first pinch point, life's good. Yeah.
Right turn.
Right turn, hold on.
Ready. Left turn. Left turn. Good. More home. Good. Below the room.
Perfect.
Good. Good.
Keep going.
Keep going.
You don't have to flow water, Phoenix. You just advance to the hose.
Okay. Move it.
I would have kicked this out, yeah. You're fine. It should have danced around. It didn't. There's too much friction.
More hose.
More hose.
So go mid pinch point. Mid pinch point. Right there.
Ready? Yeah, in a perfect world, this would have been cleaned up. So that he doesn't
So
have
move forward, Jock. Move forward. Move your body forward. Push it to the outside.
This is where being on the inside is fun.
Okay.
So I could use my larger muscle groups.
Yeah.
It's an option, dude. Yeah.
And so I like, I mean, being on the outside, what Strickland says, I like being on the inside. But the beauty of pushing into the outside and say I'm here, he can keep going and I can reset before all that hose is used. Okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't have to tell him to stop
Yeah.
when there's a single pinch point. But once you have two again, and you exhaust all this hose, then yes, you need to go back to the next mid-span. Load this, come to this mid-span, now you can drive.
Yeah. And again, we're really focusing on technique right now. We're not asking you to use like any brute force or athleticism. You're going to automatically do that on an incident, and hopefully that coupled with technique will make it go even faster and even smoother. That combination. Right now we're just really focusing on your placement and your choices of where to be.
Yeah, I should have had a little loop here. I could have kicked that out. Yeah.
All good.
Fed a little bit easier. Yep.
Okay, all good. So you're probably go mid span, Jacques, and then Phoenix, you go ahead and you can flip your hose line over, pick up the second section, and then try to get to a point where as he advances that way, you're gonna see the hose pull in. If you can push it to the outside corner, you guys have a smooth exit out.
You're gonna worry about Phoenix. Ready? This friction. He's worried about that one. He's picking up that one.
Yeah. So Jacques is able to just walk the hose line out using his larger muscle groups.
You're pushing to keep it off this. Push faster.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That was a good one, though.
We'll get you a cup link real quick. And so if you open the door and you had to start flowing water, then you wouldn't worry about that, you know? Like, it's just dependent. It's just something you could do if it works out. However you want to do it.
Ready to move? Ready.
Good, good.
Ready? Ready.
Good job, Rob. Push it outside. Now he's gonna stop. Good. Walk mid. Wait. Hold on. Walk mid pinch point. Grab the hose and then walk it around. Okay. So you're not doing this with the hose. You're just using your body. Just walk it through and push it where it needs to go. Good. Now you're pushing that outside. So if you're on the other side of the hose, if you can be, it might be easier for you to push to the outside, Rob. Again, it's like everything in a perfect world. You may or may not be in the right spot. So now you're gonna continue to clamp slide forward. You don't have to, it's up to you if you want to flow water, but you still go mid-span, Rob, mid-span.
Ready.
There you go, right there.
To drive into that corner.
Perfect, perfect. And then, yeah, mid-span a bit, mid-span again. Same spot. There you go.
The logic is if you go further than mid-span, it's hard to push the hose. It bends instead of pushing.
Cool. Good job, guys. So now we're gonna advance it out. So Brad, bring the nozzle over, pick up the hose. You're gonna be pushing it off of that first angle. Rob, you're gonna be pushing it off of this one. Once you get around this corner, you're just gonna use your body weight. And so, wait, hold on. So we're not gonna walk down the hose. So you just get in the mid, grab it.
Okay.
Walk it out, and then as you make this turn, you're gonna use your body weight and your legs to walk the hose out, not your hands. Walk it out. There you go. Perfect. Okay. So that was like the 180. That was a T and a 90. You guys already did the hit and move, and so now you guys want to just practice, do a hit and move, progress around the corner, and then flow and move. And the challenge is to flow and move and then make the 90 and continue. And then
It's going to be at a hip grip, and it's on the knee.
Yeah, the hip grip for the knee walk. So we can sound if we need to, if we're upstairs, right? We're on concrete. You're not going to need to sound, and we don't want you sounding into concrete. Okay, so you're in this position, and the communication with your heel is like ready to push, ready. And then we've also found if your heel bumps up a little bit, it's easier for you to feed that hose, so you're not pushing it at an angle behind your nozzle. Then as you move forward, if you slide your foot back, see now my weight is ready to go down. And so now my weight is moving the hose forward, and then I'm evening up. Yeah, that is, instead of being here and trying to move forward, I'm gonna have to lift up and push like it's awkward. If I slide my foot back, then my weight's doing the work, and I can do that quickly. But again, it's just my weight, and I'm just holding the hose here in the hip grip. To say you make that corner, you're going to want to advance your hose in a way because you're still flowing.
Yes.
So I need to flow and move that line. Use your body weight to move the line around the corner, and then move forward. So I'm going to want to cheat to that outside. So the main concept is you want to try to prep yourself for that turn. So you take it wide. You're not trying to go like this at the same time. You're going to take it wide. Use your body to turn. Now I'm set up to go that way. Because that's sometimes it can get kind of awkward when you go to make the turn and then you're like getting pushed back. You just want to have that solid ground as you make the turn and then progress. And then Carlton, you want to talk about the flow time stuff?
Well, yeah, as released by UL, they're trying to emphasize not only continually cooling your environment as you advance, but also flowing for longer than we're used to. They say 7 to 10 seconds, because I mean, when you look at training, frequently it's bails open for a couple seconds, close, and on to go. So they say flow longer, so 7 to 10 seconds-ish. And then number 2, don't have it shut down if you're doing a hit and move and a clamp slide, don't have it shut down for more than 10 seconds. So basically flow longer than maybe is ingrained in our muscle memory, and then be sure to clamp slide real quick and get ready to get set up and flow again.
So this allows the environment not to heat back up, and then we're starting over again.
Yep, the hot gases expand again, and you're back to square one if you shut down too long.
Right.
Pushing our fire.
Yep.
Yeah. And so the push or the flow and move, it's just an option. We're not saying every fire you're going to have to flow and move, have to do a push. You could accomplish everything with just the hit and move, which is pretty accessible, easy to use. You know, you have the line clamped. It's taking care of the nozzle reaction. You can use the distance of your hose line. Maybe you're banking it off of a wall, and then advance down into the structure. But if you're trying to do that and you're getting the conditions continue to change, you're not seeing a improvement, then at that point you may need to consider to constantly flow. And then if you need to move around to get into that building, you're not going to want to shut down. And then so those are like the trigger points where you may decide to toggle back between the hit and move and the flow and move. But you could it depends on the fire. You could do everything, get knocked down with just doing the hit and move. It's just the setup of the building. Okay. So now you're in the structure as a heel, kind of bumping right there in that heel position. Now push to that outside, Phoenix. Good, good. Good, good. Perfect.
Okay. Because the flow and move pretty much requires the heel.
We're just trying to, build that confidence of being able to make a 90, flowing and moving, and really, you're just maybe going to use this technique for 5 to 10 feet. It depends. Max 10 feet. But you guys just, I was like, what, 50 feet and 290, so should be very confident in that technique. And you could do this whole evolution with the hit and move as well. And then it may be even easier for your heel to load rooms with that clamp slide and shutting down and moving. Because the heel needs to be a little bit closer to you to a certain degree as you're flowing constantly to advance your hose. Things to consider, but great job. So as we advance it out, the same idea. You'll be on the nozzle, you flip that hose over, push it off that pinch point where Phoenix is at. Phoenix will go mid-span here. And then you're just gonna push it off this interior pinch point. Then once you're able to make that left, you're just gonna walk the hose out. Ready to go?
Ready.
Good, now just walk the hose out. Cool. Feet, and we're gonna bring the pre-connect up the tower. This is just an opportunity to illustrate how smoothly we can bring hose around multiple pinch points, 180 after 180 after 180, just with the spacing, pushing our hose to the outside, and nozzle taking it a wide approach to any corners. But this is by no means like showing this is what we would do if there's a fire on the 4th floor, right? There's lots of other options to get our hose to that location. This is just purely to illustrate a technique that we'll use on the 2.5 immediately after this, but we're gonna practice with 1 3/4. Okay? So we have somebody on the nozzle, and then we'll space everybody out about 8 to 10 feet, and then Matt and I will join in as well.
We're going all the way to the top, or
We're gonna go as far as we can.
yeah, and you're pushing it off the pinch point ahead of you, and so on and so forth. Right turn. Oh, you can't be too far, so you're not be able to push it. Move it.
push, yeah, that way.
Yeah, made it. If we had to, we didn't have like a standpipe, maybe no problem.
Yeah, I mean, we could go drop bag, we could go drop the chulo down. This is just evolution to see that. I mean, you guys got through, you know, how many 180s? Like 10 or something, without any issue going in or out. So our 2.5 inch line, easy to flow in that clamp, easy to move. If you have that, easier to move with that second engine company, total of 7, we're gonna move it with 6. Same spacing, same idea. If you walk with me this way, we're gonna advance it in, same technique. We're gonna make the 90. We're gonna do a 180, another 90, and then we're gonna do the last 90 here and advance as far as we can. There may be a point where Carlton and I will ask the nozzle to hold up, we'll readjust, and then we'll move forward.
Yes, sir.
This doesn't have to be like a super lightning fast evolution, but we should be able to walk it in pretty quickly and then walk it back out quickly as well. Because we have the right amount of people. Because we have the right amount of people and the spacing, we're gonna be able to navigate that many pinch points. Okay? So whenever you guys are ready, Brad, you wanna jump on the nozzle? And we'll just space out 8 to 10 feet after that.
Are we walking it through?
Yeah, we're just gonna walk it through.
Okay.
And again, we're gonna wanna walk 2.5 as far as we can into the structure. We can do the same exact thing with the right amount of people and the spacing in that low heel position. But right now we're just gonna walk it in. Just to illustrate the spacing aspect of it.
Have we ever like flown to go like interior with it? Like, you know, it was like a 2 or 3 man off, like we're actually sliding. We're still cracking this as they're teaching, still crack it. Like,
yeah, you can. You can.
Okay.
Like we've seen people do it both ways.
And it still works same.
Yeah, it's still the clamp side. And really, the nozzle and the person clamping, they shouldn't be doing a lot of work. It's all the heel. And then we'll show you there's a good technique for that heel to move the 2.5 in comparison to the 1.75 as you're clamp sliding it forward. But ideally, we're not doing this with 2 or 3 people. If we're doing this in an evolution, we're making sure we have a water supply. This is a different fire. This isn't the fucking this isn't the throw our hose down on the ground, force the door, and then get after it, right? This is a commercial fire. We're gonna have strategy, we're gonna have Rick, we're gonna have water supply, multiple entry points, very laid out and planned, trigger points for entry and egress. And if we're doing this, it's gonna be set up, it'll be set up quickly, but we're gonna make sure we have the manpower that we need. So not to say that you never have to do this with 2 or 3 people. Maybe you have a small commercial and you guys can get a knock on it with that much and you're comfortable, cool. You'll still be able to do it. We've been able to do it around a couple corners, but for this evolution, as this much hose, you're gonna wanna have that second engine company, yeah.
This is straight stick.
Yeah.
There'll be an SOG with terminology coming out at some point this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
What we're doing as opposed to a bite or preloading, this is straight stick.
We're
Hose
all on it.
just goes in straight.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we didn't talk about it over there. That's a great point that Matt brought up. We're gonna, most likely on every evolution, move back between a straight stick to bite or preload, straight stick, bite, as we sequentially move our hose line in. This entire evolution is just gonna be a straight stick.
We have the manpower to make this straight stick.
Yes,
Yep.
yeah, okay. So yeah, about 8 to 10 feet. Brad, take the corners as wide as you can. Heels, pushing our hose to the outside corner.
Ready? Right turn. Right turn. Left turn. Right turn. Left turn.
Hose to you. Hose! Okay, great job. So we pretty much advanced real close to 150 feet at 2.5 around all those pinch points, walking in about 30 seconds. All right, so we're gonna move the 2.5 out using the same positions. And really, if we ever did this on a structure, on an incident, this is the more labor intensive part, is walking it in or heeling it in, right? In that low position, whatever conditions dictate. But we're gonna be doing that segmented. So we're not gonna do all this workload right off the bat. We kind of maxed you out here, but really over 150 feet into a structure, like we talked about, structural integrity, egress, we got 150 feet into the building and we're using the reach of our stream and it's not working, we need to reevaluate. Different access point, different water, different size water, like this is probably like the max we're gonna ever have to do. And on an incident, our labor intensive part is gonna be broken up in segments. And as we see on this next evolution, when you're flowing water, everybody's able to relax. Nozzles are relaxing, heels are relaxing, ready for the workload to move our hose to the next point. Everybody relax, flow water, controlling our environment, and then move forward. So we did a lot of hose right here, able to do it no problem with the right amount of people. This is one person less than what you would have if you asked for another engine company. So as we move out, Jacques, we're gonna be concerned about this pinch point, Rob, that one, and then Carlton and I will worry about the 180 and then getting out. So yeah, Rob, you're just gonna be mid-span here. Yeah, okay. And then Jacques, your mid-span, pushing it off of this one.
Copy.
So yeah, you just wanna, the best you can, push it off of this. Ready to move! Move!
Move it!
So, walk that way, on that side, Rob. Watch behind you. Thank you. Yeah, then we're gonna walk. We're gonna walk this coupling. We're gonna, evolution is we're gonna have a nozzle and then 2 heels. All we're gonna do is we're gonna walk our line into the first 90. Again, we wanna walk our line as far as possible. Then we're gonna be met with conditions where we need to flow water. So again, taking our corner nice and wide, getting the clamp, flow water. Heel is in pushing the 2.5 into the wall behind them to take some of that nozzle reaction, flow, shut down, ready to move. 2 heels coordinate, push it off this interior pinch point, clamp slide it forward, you can crack the bail open, whatever works for you. Having a good amount of 2.5 out in front of you, it helps to have leverage. But really, if it's coordinated, they should be moving the hose forward for you and you're just moving your body to go with it, really. Okay, and then you're gonna clamp slide about 4 or 5 feet, and then flow again in the clamp position. But this time you're not up against the wall. We want you to feel how easy it is to flow. All right, so this is the first session that we're doing this, but we have 1.25" smoothbore tip, 325 GPMs. We were doing this with the 250 constant gallonage. You're getting a chance to flow that over there. There's 0 difference in flowing it from the clamp. So if you need that much water, why not this? And plus, like you saw in the videos for the IST, way longer stream reach, denser, more impact, more penetration into your fuels. So this is a valid tool, almost to the point where if we're gonna pull this, I would want to switch it out. I would want this. And we'll be able to see for yourself as we flow, okay? So we'll have somebody on the nozzle and then 2 heels behind. Anything I'm missing? Or? Okay.
On the nozzle should be easy living with all your heels sliding to there.
We're gonna walk to that 90 Phoenix, then turn, and then just get in the clamp position. Okay. Flow. They're gonna adjust the line for you, but really you shouldn't have any nozzle reaction because it's going into the ground. And then at that point, you're shut down, ready to move, ready. And then you're gonna have a good amount of hose ahead in front of you. So really your nozzle's like up here, you know? Yeah. And then just move forward, ready to move. And then as you slide forward, they're gonna move the hose forward for you. What some people can do is they crack the bail.
So it bends easier.
Yeah, so it bends easier. It's up to you. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try it without cracking it because I think I've never done it.
Yeah, without it. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Double hand.
Yeah.
If needed.
If needed, you know, yeah, this is really, say if you're gonna push with the 2.5, then that for the heel, as the guy knee walks forward, it makes it really, you're able to really control it. But yeah, you can use it when he's clamp sliding as well. It makes it a lot easier. We're gonna walk to the 90, yeah.
Here we go. Let's do this.
Ready, go.
Ready. Ready. Here we go.
Good, he's gonna flow that way, Jason. Okay, yeah. You're right there, so good, get in the clamp. Then Jacques gonna get it on the ground, Jacques. There you go, good. Now just go ahead and open it up. How's that feel?
Good.
All day, all right?
Yeah.
325 GPM. Yeah, you can rest at this point.
Yeah.
And then even as you're moving in, you shouldn't be doing any work.
Right.
Everybody else is moving the hose for you. So just, hey man, this is an option.
Right.
If you want to flow big water, well, why not this?
Throw big water.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to shut down, and then he may crack it, so maybe a little bit of water. But yeah. So this is where communication with your heels is going to make it easier for you.
Okay. Moving. Ready to move.
Good job, Phoenix. So right about there, you can just get in the clamp and flow.
Ready to move? Ready! Moving!
Yeah, so if it's getting caught up, then just wait, be patient. They should do the work for you. You're not gonna pull this 2.5 with your legs, so you just gotta yell at them, hey, I need more hose, then they'll adjust as needed.
Yeah, that makes sense, instead of me trying to muscle this hole.
Yes, right, and so that's like the technique approach with the 2.5, right? Like before, like, oh, I can't do it. Well, yeah, you're right, you can't, but there's an easy fix for it. You just have to do it the proper way.
Right turn! Forward! Pretty easy, Josh?
Yeah.
Nice. You guys ready to move? Ready. Move! Hit! 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 Hit!
Great, thanks guys.
All right guys, welcome. So our station today with Collins and I is kind of broken up into 3 different parts. First, we're gonna review, kind of carry over from last year's IST. Just the clamp position, the clamp slide, the hip grip, and the knee walk, and when you would actually utilize those positions and techniques. From there, we're gonna advance into moving this 1 3/4 line into the structure. We'll give a scenario, and we'll talk about preload in the front room and hose flow patterns inside as well. And then lastly, we're gonna end with showing a couple different deployment options for your Chula Vista load, different scenarios that they could apply and how they could also be applied to our other hose that we have on the engine as well. So we'll get started. If you guys wanna bump up here. So again, just techniques when conditions grant this, right? If conditions are good, we're just gonna walk the hose line into the structure, right? There's no need to get down on our knees. But if we do get in a situation and we are taking heat, we need to drop down, our visibility is not too well, we're gonna drop down into a clamp position. Key points here to remember, you wanna get all that body weight onto that right shin, right? What that's gonna do is take away all your nozzle reaction and pressure at the line here, right? It just drives that into the ground, frees me up here, and it frees up my heelman back here to go back to the next room, get more hose. He can go conduct a quick search off the line, come back. He leaves me here, right? I'm good. I could one-hand this for as long as I need to. Then you bump back up, and we're ready to go, right? So we'll shut down the line, right? We've knocked back the fire. We're ready to move. Use your left leg. If you need to sound, or you think you're in a position where you need to sound, go ahead and use this technique to sound, right? Are you gonna need to on every single family story home? No, only if there's a basement that you suspect. But if you are going upstairs on the second story, it's been burning in the back, Charlie Delta corner for a while, you're making your way up to the stairs to that hallway, consider sounding, right? Again, not always gonna need to use it, but in this position, it gives us the opportunity to. So we'll sound, take your right hand, get it out front here, and we're gonna use our large muscle groups, our hips, to advance this line. Ready? Move. Pull up and over to your left shoulder. Good. Open back up. Slow. Again, my partner can bump back, get more hose if needed, and we're all set. So that's the clamp with the clamp slide. We'll back the line up. All right, so say we have advanced halfway down the hallway. Now we're in a position where we can't afford to shut down the line, right? We're taking too much heat and we need to continuously flow. So with that, we're gonna get into our hip grip position. Key things to remember with that. Take your palm of your hand, dig it down and into your groin, right? That's gonna absorb your nozzle reaction for you. You're flowing. And then with coordination with your heel, man, ready to move.
Hey.
Stomp out here, bring your left toes back as far as you can, and allow your body weight, your momentum to take you forward. Notice I'm not pulling or trying to twist awkwardly, dragging this hose. I'm just using my body weight to advance. And my partner's anticipating small movements, so he's not gonna give me too much hose, right? Again, that's the hip grip with the knee walk. If you're taking conditions and you can't afford to shut down the line, it's just an option to continuously flow to make that final push down the hallway. Now Matt's gonna jump on the nozzle. Just a couple other review points, right? So as the heel man, we wanna be in this position, underhand grip, left hand out here for stability, and we're driving off this right leg, right? We're not really pulling the hose, but we're using our body, our big muscle groups, again, to conserve energy and drive off this leg.
Ready to move.
Ready?
Move.
For the knee grip and the knee walk, anticipate his small movements, right? We're only trying to advance 6 to 12 inches, so you don't want to jam him up with too much hose. If I were to do that, ready to go? I'm going to give him too much hose and throw him off balance, right? He's not going to be too happy. The hose line's not going to go well. Another thing, real quick, is bail placement, right? Consider where you want your bail. In this position right here, if I were to jam him up or he loses his balance, as he falls forward, that bail's gonna get knocked off by him falling into it, right? His body's gonna catch him. If it's in the neutral position right here, he falls forward, maybe his right arm catches it, maybe it doesn't. But if it is on the outside and he falls forward, chances are he's gonna lose control of that line and we're gonna be in a bad situation. So just keep that in mind as you're advancing, right? And it doesn't matter if you're on this side of the hose. If this is more comfortable for you over here, then jump on this side. Again, just keep that bail on the interior of yourself. Cool? So we'll drag this back. You guys can rep it out as many times as you like, and then we can move on from there.
I like how you added the don't pull too much on the hip walk or the knee walk.
Oh, yeah. Send Hirschman for a ride.
That was crazy how that went down so quick. That just shows he just wants to kick out.
The further you bring this leg back, the more your body's gonna just take you forward, right? Rather than you get stuck in like a lunge position like this and you try to pull, you're fighting a lot of resistance there, right? So bring this back as far as you can and allow your body to go forward. And the more upright you are, the easier it's gonna feel. You'll feel your body go forward. This leg should just drag along for the ride, right? We're not really trying to pull that leg. There you go. So try to see, yeah, there you go. Get your hose straight. Make sure you dig it in to your hip, right? There it is. Feel better? Yeah. Yeah, cool. The next evolution, we're gonna simulate that there's a fire in that back bedroom down the hallway. So as you enter, conditions are gonna be clear in here, right? There's gonna be no need to get down to the ground. So you're gonna be able to walk your hose in, take your corners wide. About halfway down the hallway, you'll start taking heat, visibility will start to drop. So you have to get down into that clamp position. And then Matt and I are gonna work from there to advance the hose to that back bedroom. So a couple key things that you want us to mention. Training's gonna put out the verbiage of this sometime later this year, but reach, coat, seal. If you hear that, think about what your effective reach is for an 1 3/4. It's gonna be 20 to 25 feet. So you think about most residential houses you go into, how long is the hallway, right? No more than 25 feet. So know that you're gonna have an effective stream to reach the back of that hallway, right? With the 2.5, it's gonna be effective reach of 30 to 35 feet. So again, just numbers to keep in mind as you're deploying hose and flowing water. With that said, the next one is gonna be coat. What's that referring to? Our stream pattern, right? They want to see circles, upside down U's, and sweeping the floor. What does that do? It coats every surface that we just went through, right? So think about every inch that you go through that hallway, you're gonna want to cool down and coat before you advance the hose line. And then seal. Once you make it to that final bedroom, that final push, you want to seal off that compartment, right? Push all those heated gases back into that room so it seals it off and it doesn't blow back on you and your crew. So reach, coat, seal, again, you might see that down the road through training and Target Solutions. And then another thing, as a backseater, right? When you're walking up to a structure, you might not have a chance to get 3 sides of the building, right? But you still want to guesstimate how much hose you're going to need inside that structure so you don't get too much hose. So a good trick is to take a look at your ridge line, take your ridge line times that by 1.5. That's going to give you roughly amount of hose that you'll need anywhere inside that structure. So if we're on 1,100 square foot home, 1,200 square foot home, right? We don't need 150 feet of hose packed inside here. That's just gonna screw us up even more inside, right? Think about all the furniture, toys on the ground. It's just gonna get caught on those pinch points that much easier. So consider how much you're gonna need inside there and go from there. 1,100 square foot home, 50 to 70 feet of hose is gonna be more than plenty inside, okay? So with that, Matt and I are gonna demonstrate how this can be done with just the 2 of us. Is that a real possibility? Yeah, it sure is, right? Your company officer's still doing his 360. Matt and I have got our line stretched. We're masked up, we're ready to go. We're gonna be aggressive and try to get in there and put it out as quick as possible. And maybe by that point, your captain comes around and he jumps on the hose line. Now you have 2 wheelmen. Or maybe the second engine company comes in and they get assigned backup fire attack, so they might jump on the line with you. But Matt and I, again, are gonna show it can be done with just the 2 of us. The whole time we're gonna be communicating, right? That's key. Matt's gonna preload this front room for me. He's gonna utilize the space he has here, utilize the T hallway that's shown. He may use the wall. So with this hose line, right, I don't need 2 hands to go in here. I can take this in one-handed. I know this first coupling needs to go inside, right? That's 50 feet. So I'm gonna hook my partner up and take it in with me. Ready to move? Ready. Take it in. When you get in here, just drop that coupling, all right? Conditions are still good. Conditions are still good. Take your corner wide, right? We don't want to be right up here on the corner. Take this doorway wide. That way, all right, moving. Conditions are starting to bank down, but still pretty good. Good? Yep, ready. All right, now I'm starting to take some heat. I'm gonna drop down into a clamp. I see fire blowing out that back bedroom. Knock it back. Hit the ceiling, the floor. Sweep the floor. There, we've knocked it back. Ready to move? Ready. Move. Left turn, 10 feet. So we've cooled this whole environment that we're advancing down, right? You see your doorway, you want to overshoot your door? Copy. I'm going to open up, knock this back. Partner's back, he's ready, and we're making that final push inside. Ready to move? Good?
Take the corners wide.
Nice, Jamie. Yeah, there you go. Corner wide, that's good. Perfect. Cool. Nice shake.
Roll this one forward.
Roll, yeah, you roll them. All right, guys, for this last portion, we're just gonna show a couple different options for your Chula Vista load and different scenarios where you deploy it differently. So, again, what we have here is our simulated Chula load. You deploy it off the back of the engine as so, right? 100 feet. So we're gonna simulate that my partners come up, flanked out his gated Y. I'm gonna drop this female suction to him. He's gonna make the connection for me. And our objective is gonna be 50 feet or less straight in front of us, right? So with that, I'm gonna show the accordion forward. Couple different steps just before you deploy this hose, right? We wanna take our right hand, find that nozzle. With our left hand, find that coupling. If for whatever reason that coupling's not there, right, a lot of time it isn't, just find that next mid-bite and grab that. And before you deploy it, hang on to them. As you dump, you're gonna walk this out. Water! And you have your nozzle and your coupling at your point of entry ready to go. So quick deployment for 100 feet of hose when your objective is straight in front of you. Now say for instance, I forgot to grab that coupling with my left hand, right? And you dump the 100 feet on the ground and you're standing there with the nozzle. What are you gonna do? You're just gonna grab that coupling and you're gonna advance it forward. It's gonna pay out the same. This technique, just take that extra second or two to try to get yourself organized. Nozzle in right hand, coupling or bite in the left hand, and deploy as you go. Now Matt's gonna show the V-split technique. And for that we have a little different scenario. So we'll walk over here. Say we're making our approach down this breezeway, right? Another apartment lay. So I've come up here with the extended booster. I've dropped the gated Y. Say this is 2 or 3 story building here. We know fire is around the corner here somewhere, but we haven't identified which unit it is yet. So as soon as Matt makes the corner here, we're gonna simulate that it's a first story unit right here blowing out, right? So Matt's not gonna have the option to advance the line this way, right? So instead he's gonna use the breezeway behind him to deploy his hose. So this is gonna be the V-split. He drops the female right to his partner. We're gonna make that connection with the Y. From there, he's gonna split the stack with his right and left hands, and he's gonna lay it down on the ground. Go ahead. Spreads it out. And from that point, he's gonna find, look, he's got 3 and 3, so he's gonna find his 2 mid loops, and he's just gonna stretch them back behind him. As he comes back, he's grabbing his coupling, he's grabbing his nozzle. Water! Water coming! And he's good to go. Cool. Again, if you were to put that down and the loops back here got all screwed up, not a big deal, right? What are we gonna do? We're still just gonna find those 2 mid bites here and take them back. So again, this is if you don't have an option to deploy the hose in front of you as you're making your approach. You've come up, you turn the corner, you realize, oh man, it's right there. I'm gonna have to deploy behind me, okay? Now Matt's gonna show a quick technique to reload the hose, this Chula load. That way, say Cap, you have a probie for the day, right? And he comes to you, he says, hey, I wanna work on my accordion forward or my V-split. Rather than have him pull the Chula off the engine, just tell him to go grab a couple sticks, 1 3/4 off the hose rack. He could connect the 2. If you have a spare nozzle at the station, great. If not, you can still reload this and he can simulate where the nozzle would be. And he could bang out reps in the app bay, unsupervised, and get a lot of good training in a short amount of time. Again, both of these techniques can be utilized with other hose loads that are on the engine, right? Think about our 2.5 pre-connect. You can modify Minuteman, shoulder 100 of that, grab that loop, stretch the other 100 out, accordion forward to your objective. Also with the cross lays, even though they're not loaded the same, right? We can still use the same technique. Modified Minuteman, split the stack, 100 feet on your shoulder, grab that last loop, drag it out, accordion forward to your objective. One more thing, if you're working on a reserve engine for the day, right? What don't we have for a vehicle fire? We don't have our 100-foot pre-connect to number 1. So think about considerations. If you don't need, if you're not worried about vegetation, right? The fire getting into vegetation, you don't need 200 feet of hose on the side of the freeway. Consider going around back, grabbing that Chula load, coming around the pump panel, dropping it to your engineer, accordion forward to your objective. So just different things to consider with these hose loads. Water coming!
All right, so this station is dedicated to the selection process and the stretch process. And primarily we're gonna start with selection, and we wanna talk about this because in the modern fire service, we're not seeing as much fire as we used to see. The other thing is of the fires that we do respond to, oftentimes they're small compartmentalized fires and not well advanced fires. So we want to talk about some objective criteria of when the 1 3/4 line or a larger line would be most appropriate to pull. So we've come up with a couple methods to help create discussion amongst crews of talking about those different criterias. So the two methods we established were a pneumonic base and then also fire flow based. So if you flip over to the selection side of your reference card, we'll start with the pneumonic base. These pneumonics are not all encompassing, but they're a good starting point and a good reference of when an 1 3/4 versus a 2.5 would be appropriate to pull. So starting with the 1 3/4, the pneumonic is Coles. So starting with the C, that stands for compartmentalized fires. Again, compartmentalized fires we're classifying as about 500 square feet or less. 1 3/4 has high success rate, and it's going to be work well for those fires. The next one is O, so occupant life hazard. So this is when you have a known rescue and you need to get a line in place quickly. So you're going to deploy the 1 3/4 line, and it's highly mobile, and it's going to allow you to hopefully effect rescue quicker. The L is low to moderate fire load, and then S stands for speed and mobility. So we all know the 1 3/4 line is much more mobile, and it's quicker to deploy than a 2.5. Transitioning to the 2.5-inch pneumonic SD pole. So S stands for standpipe operations. D is for defensive or well advanced fires. So again, with all the synthetic material, fires are advancing quicker. They're producing a higher heat release rate than previously seen. So this would be an example of a full apartment on fire, maybe 2 apartments, maybe a commercial occupancy. And probably the most common one we're teaching our newest folks in the academy is a fully involved garage fire. So that'd be kind of a high fire load, well advanced upon arrival. Next is P for penetration. So volume reach and penetration. This is best demonstrated in the pre-assignment videos, but we do a side-by-side comparison of the 1 3/4 fog, 2.5-inch fog to 2.5-inch smoothbore. And it really shows the stream reach, the density, and the power behind each of these hose lines. So with that being said, when we think of a bigger space, we want the stream reach inside a fire environment because we might not be able to reach these high ceilings, penetrate through drop ceilings, or get over stockpiles. So those are all considerations. Is we want to look at these characteristics of these hose lines. And the 2.5 outperforms the 1 3/4 in those 3 criteria significantly. The next is open floor plans. So open floor plans, I think originally, or our initial thoughts are commercial spaces. So again, thinking of warehouses, churches, supermarkets, strip malls, any type of large space. But we also need to redirect our thought to all the modern building construction, because our modern homes are also built with open floor plan in mind. So you have these vaulted ceilings in homes. You got these 30 by 30, 40 by 40 big great rooms that cause a lot of problems potentially if you're pulling a smaller line and you expect a smaller fire. The next is fire loads, or large fire loads. And again, the larger the space, the more stuff you can put on them. All this synthetic material is going to create a higher fire load and a bigger fire. And then lastly, the last L is firefighter life hazard. So this is when we have a RIC activation, Mayday, and we need to protect the rescue crews going, or the RIC crew going to protect the rescue the firefighters. So we want to get large hose streams in place between the fire and the rescue crews, and really cool that environment as best as we can, as quick as we can. So that's the pneumatic-based technique, and it's broken into the 1 3/4 and 2.5. The other method we decided to use is fire flow formulas. So fire flow formulas, if you're not familiar, they are real common in the pre-fire planning world, but they're common in the fire service, and there's a lot of them. We chose 2 of the most common ones, the National Fire Academy method and then the Iowa rate of flow method. So starting with the National Fire Academy method, it's NFA on your sheet. That one was developed in the 1980s by experienced fire officers throughout the United States, and that was developed in the National Fire Academy. Essentially, they took a whole bunch of simulated structure fires and they came up with this formula. And it's probably the most widely used in the fire service that you'll see out there today. So it's referenced in a lot of materials. So a lot of people believe in this method. But essentially, it is just square footage divided by 3. So length times width divided by 3. And that will give you your GPM requirement, assuming 100% of that space is involved in fire, and assuming that it's also in a structure. It's a structure fire. So if we took the building behind you, the office building, and we assume that it's 50 feet in length and 20 feet in depth, that gives us 1,000 square feet, 50 times 20. Divide that by 3, and that gives you a fire flow or GPM requirement of 333 degrees. Again, assuming the thing is fully involved, the building's fully involved. So as a fireman, if you were to do one of these methods or pre-fire plan a place, you should have the thought process in your head that you're not going to pull an 1 3/4 line on this, because an 1 3/4 line only gives you 150 GPM. You want to think larger volume, and also be thinking potentially you're going to need backup lines to help support you. Because even with a larger 2.5, it's only going to give you 250 GPM and maybe up to 325, depending if you switch out to smoothbore. The other thing about the National Fire Academy formula is it can be segmented out or percentaged out. So if half the building's involved, you can take 50% of your calculation. So in this case, 333 divided by half, or half of that, would be approximately 165 GPM. So if 2 offices were involved, you would know that you could probably pull an 1 3/4 line and be safe to extinguish it, because it's a 165 GPM requirement. The other thing that is nice about it is you can add exposures into it. So with exposures, you add 25%. So if you have an adjacent exposure, lateral exposures, or vertical exposures, such as like another apartment above or an attic space, that would add another 25%. So for simple math, if our fire flow or GPM requirement was 100 and we had 1 exposure, that would increase our GPM requirement to 125 GPM. The second method, or the second formula, is Iowa rate of flow test. That was developed in the 1950s and 60s, and that was done at Iowa State University. And they burned actually hundreds and hundreds of structures, and that they came up with volume based. So it's length times width times height, and that is divided by 100, and that gives you your GPM requirement. So the intent behind these is not to necessarily do a calculation on a fire ground. While it still could be accomplished if you train on these, it's not a complicated calculation, but the intent is to give some talking points to do this on the non-emergency. So your medical aids, your pre-fire planning, and your FCIPs, and to have discussion points as a crew and objective criteria of when you might pull an 1 3/4 versus a 2.5. So that kind of touches on the volume component. So under selection, the three kind of criteria is volume, reach, and the power or penetration. So moving to stream reach, again, referencing the videos, it best demonstrates this. But when we compare those three lines, we got an average reach distance of 100 to 120 feet. 120 feet being the smoothbore tips. But really the effective range was more like 70 to 100 feet. And before you got breakover and you got water on target, you were losing water on target. But that is not an accurate description of really like what the stream reach would be in an interior space. In an interior space, you're gonna have walls, obstructions, stock loads, all this stuff that is gonna affect your stream reach. In addition, in a well-advanced fire or a working fire, the BTUs are gonna absorb the water, which is gonna affect how far your stream will reach anyways. So when you try and flow your stream into a superheated environment, it's gonna get absorbed. So what they found in research that with an 1 3/4 line, you're gonna get about 20 to 25 feet of stream reach and about 30 to 35 feet with a 2.5. So if you can imagine if we flew left to right, right to left, with an 1 3/4 line, that would be 20 feet by 20 feet, which would give us an effective extinguishment range of 400 square feet. In comparison to the 2.5, that gives 30 by 30, which is 900 square feet, which this is a perfect example or one example of why if you need a bigger line or you have a high fire flow requirement, 1 2.5 will outperform 2 1 3/4 lines, because even with 2 1 3/4 lines, you're still not going to get that 900 square feet. So, and then lastly, the last thing we want to talk about is the volume of our lines. So historically, we are taught GPM in the academies, and that's what we discuss, gallons per minute. But really that's more applicable to a defensive operation where we're flowing minutes or hours on end. But in an offensive fire attack, we're flowing and then we're moving, we're flowing and then we're moving, and we're hitting and moving, and it's short bursts, it's not continuous. So when you reframe, you have a different reference of application rate of gallons per second. With the 1 3/4 line, you're getting about 2.5 gallons per second. Moving to the 2.5 inch lines, you're getting upwards of 5.5 gallons per second, which is a big difference. And keep in mind, that's in a targeted space. So if you can imagine holding a 5-gallon bucket, how heavy that is, and throwing that at a fire every second, that's a lot of water in a small area, and your extinguishment power is exponentially higher. So just remember, as you're advancing through a structure, we're cooling, even if it's not on fire, we're cooling spaces to prevent the off gases from happening. And then we're advancing, and we're doing that, and we're cooling those temperatures in the superheated environment as we advance through. So we want a higher application rate if the fire load is real high. The other example along these lines that we've been giving is if you were camping and at the end of the night you had a campfire and you wanted to put it out, most people are going to get a bucket of water, a large volume of water, and they're going to dump it on there to cool all the coals. Versus if you took just a bottle of water, it's going to take a lot of these bottles of water to extinguish the fire throughout the night. It will still have the same effect, but it will just take much longer if you're just using bottles of water. So at this point, we're gonna transition, and we have some fire simulation cards that we're gonna discuss as a crew, and we're gonna talk about what hose line selection we might choose. And using your cards or reference points, it can give you the justification of why you're gonna pull a certain line over another. All right. So we'll start with this one. So just take a look at the building construction, take a look at the fire, consider your occupant life hazards, all the factors you might think, and then let's talk about which hose line you would want to pull. Okay, so 2.5. Everyone seems, why 2.5? So it's a well-advanced fire. What's that? So we need a quick knockdown power, right, to prevent this from extending into adjacent apartments. And then if we don't get control of this quickly, it's probably gonna extend to multiple apartments, right? So once you get it knocked down, you might consider then an 1 3/4 line to conduct primary searches other places or do full extinguishment if needed. Good on that one? Let's see. How about this one? So this is a little bit more standard type of fire we go to. Okay, extend booster, 1 3/4. So when we're looking at volume, same thing, right? Because we're gonna have 150 GPM nozzles. What are you thinking?
Extended booster just because it's on a second floor, and then you can have 2 lines going up. So pull up the extended booster for a ladder, taking up that side pathway, and then have 2 lines extended. Whereas you're limited just to that one area if you have one hose line with like a 2.5 reconnect.
Okay. So get a pre-connect transitional going. Okay. So what makes this? What would make an 1 3/4 successful on this based on some characteristics that we see of the fire? What would make an 1 3/4 line successful in this case? It's compartmentalized. What else? Look at your card, Eric, and see what.
So if you have one, it's low moderate viability, because if not, looks like a 1-inch compartment. So not much.
Okay, so a smaller fire load, and then also we would have a high life hazard, right? That we suspect that we might need to get a primary search going quick. Okay, good. All right, let's do this one. Do you agree? All right. So what type of occupancy is this? Commercial. It's hard to tell, but it's a strip mall. So this is actually UL studies. They burned down some strip malls. So what would be good about the 2.5 in this case? Stream reach. So you could maybe get the whole thing from the alpha side, because most strip malls are pretty shallow, 30 to 50 feet. What else?
Or GPMs per second.
Okay.
More than double, 2 3/4 per second.
And do you have open floor plans, high fire load? Okay, good. All right, so we got more that you guys can review later if you want. So we're gonna transition the discussion to the stretch. So with the stretch, there's kind of 3 categories of hose lays. There's short hose lays, extended hose lays, and then appliance hose lays, which we would refer to standpipe operations. So with our short hose lay, this is what we do the most often. Anything within 200 feet. So we have our 200-foot pre-connects, and they work very well, and they work most of the time for us. They're very common in the fire service, a successful hose lay. So they're rapidly deployed. Most of our objectives are within the 200 feet, so it makes it a good selection choice. And then also, we can get water on the fire real fast because we can charge it quickly. But there are some setbacks. The main one is that it's a fixed length, and it works on both ends. So if our fire is really close, we're gonna have a lot of extra hose on the ground, and that's gonna cause kinks and also trip hazards. So it's just gonna be in the way. On the other end, it's gonna be, we could potentially stretch short, and so now we need to extend our hose lay. So with that takes us kind of to the next category of extended hose lays beyond the 200-foot pre-connect. So what are some ways we can extend our 200-foot pre-connect with the Chula Vista attack packages? Sorry, I can't hear you. Okay, double up on a Chula load, so extend to 300 feet. So we want to probably keep it within 300 feet because of friction loss rates. So try not to take it to that 400 if we need 400. Use 2.5 to get you there. What did you say?
I was just saying Chula.
Oh, okay.
Pull a Metro pack off the back.
Okay, so you could use a Metro pack as well. What's another method? Okay, so we'll talk about that in a minute, but extended booster, this is if we have to stretch to the fire. So extended boosters, we got the left and right stacks, and then we can use a Chula load or a Metro pack on the Metro extended booster. What's another way we can extend past 200 feet? What's the characteristic of the 2.5-inch nozzle? We can use a breakaway nozzle for the 2.5, extend past that, so 200 feet of 2.5, and then 1 to 200 feet of 1.75-inch line. And then lastly, if we had 2.5-inch hose, if we need a 2.5-inch hose line or fog nozzle or smooth bore, we could extend 300-400 feet by using our stacks to add on to our pre-connect. And then the last hose lay is like a standpipe operations where we take hose to it and then we supplement it or we pump off of it and then we use that as our fire tack. So we're going to mainly focus on the extended hose lay when we have to extend past 200 feet. So we want to give you some tools because because of the 200-foot pre-connect, we don't do long hose lays as often and we don't do these calculations often. So we want to make sure that we stay engaged on giving tools of how to successfully estimate distances. About 30, 40 years ago, most fire departments had a lot of bulk beds, and every hose lay they'd have to estimate their distance. So 50, 150, 300 feet. So they got really good at it. But now the 200 foot is still popular, our pre-connects. We don't do it as often. So there's a few methods that we can do. So our brains work best when we segment out our lays. So we break them into manageable sections. And it also does well as a firefighter, breaking into 50-foot sections because we see 50-foot sections of hose all the time. So if we came up with a formula for like the different possibilities of segmenting out your lay, the first segment would be from the engine to your point of entry. So if let's just say we were right here and the Connex box is our point of entry, we would know this is a 50-foot section. The second segment would be elevation up or down. So that would be, stairwells or going into a basement. The third section would be your fire floor. So once you got to the top of the third floor, for example, and then you had to extend down a hallway, however much hose that would take. And then lastly, how much hose is required for the interior space once you got to the fire room. So an easy way to know how much hose you need for inside of a structure is just the common formula of length plus width. So in this example, if you had a 50-foot length of a building and a 20-foot in width, how much hose would you need inside? About 70 feet, right? So 70 feet to cover the interior width. Another method would be 1.5 times the length. So same example, 50 times 1.5, you get to about the same answer, 75. The other thing we can do is we can look at common measurements. So if we look at a residential setting, there's common measurements we see all around us, and so if we can use those as reference points, it will help us estimate lays, especially when it's a long lay. So the average one-car garage width is 12 feet. A two-car garage width is about 25 feet, and the garage itself is 25 by 25. The concrete pad in front of it in a modern home is about 25 by 25. Not talking about some of these larger homes, but your standard home. Your sidewalk is about 5 foot in width, and a green belt is about 5 foot in width. Moving to the roadway, the national standard for lane width is 12 feet. This is a little bit looser, but your average sedan or SUV length is 15 feet. Your average length of a pickup truck is about 20 feet, and then a semi-truck trailer is, as you know, 53 feet. So about 50-foot section. And then lastly, we can look at parking spots. So the average width of a parking spot is 10 feet. The average depth is 20 feet. So you can see quickly we can add a parking spots to get a quick 50 to 100 foot reference. And that can give you a quick reference of how much hose you need to lay. So if you guys look at those parking spots over there, there's 4 parking spots. So that gives us a quick 40-foot reference. So if we had to lay hose along that railing, along a building, we know we need 40 to 50 feet right there in like 5 seconds. The other thing we can do with parking spots is we can help quickly reference a fire flow formula. So if we look at the academy classroom, the one to the left, how wide would you guys say that is based on the parking spots? 25 or 30 feet? Okay, so good. So if we took the alpha side as 30 feet, and then we looked at the Bravo or Delta side,
And we determined that was 40 feet. 30 times 40 would be 1,200 square feet. Divide by 3. So if that building was completely involved, a good starting point would be about 400 GPM requirement. So you know you would need a larger hose line to start with. Moving back to the slide, your residential height of per floor is about 8 to 10 feet, and then commercial is 10 to 15 feet. So it's just a quick reference for vertical spaces. So from here, we got a scenario for you, and this scenario is designed to test your estimation skills of how much hose is required to stretch from your engine to the objective. So use that calculation, use common references, and then however much hose is required for the apartment on fire. So the other thing I forgot to mention is you can also look at the length of fire engines or apparatus. We all know the common lengths, so engines are 30 feet, the USAR is about 50, the tillers are about 60, so that can also help us. So for you guys, your objective is to stretch from engine 56. We're gonna just do a dry hose lay. And the fourth story is on fire. This is a huge apartment building, but fire is coming out of the fourth story, and the entrance is on the Bravo side of the tower. And you can use the balconies to your advantage, however you want to do it. But as a crew, come up together of how much hose it's gonna take to get there, and then how much hose you need in the interior space.